With my hand in the mouth of truth, I affirm any resemblance to any mammal, published or unpublished work, myth, religion, adherence to the proper use of grammar and punctuation or anything else is purely coincidental. On the other hand, Sherlock Holmes said there were no coincidences. This book was written, illustrated, and glued by Suzanne Ellison, March 2023. This book should be handled with clean and dry hands. Do not skip pages. Follow any instructions you are given. Do not argue with the book. Respect the book. Some portions will still be tacky, as in sticky, not the other kind of tacky. Follow me. A visitor comes to Covington. A fairy tale. Prologue. In this book, such as it is, a visitor is about to land in Covington. He travels by river and consults an ancient map. The visitor has previously traveled to this part of the world and uses the map more as an amusement than a guide. For the reader, the map will reveal a portion of the forgotten history of this part of the river, an introduction to fair Covington. The visitor is not engaged on a quest. Rather, he has an obligation to fulfill. Turn the page and rotate the book 90 degrees to the right. When the map was made, Covington was known as Covetown. It was a safe harbor for river pirates, and the only civilized settlement on this section of the river. To the east were the tropics of Newport, where alligators lurked and flocks of Carolina parakeets screamed. On the extremely muddy north bank of the river, herds of flying pigs thrived. If one were foolish enough to stop there and survive the stampede, or flypede as it were, good luck! You will be mired in mud till next Monday. Larry the ferryman, a mean-spirited giant, was known for bashing customers lacking exact change. If your destination was west of Covington, it was best to stay as far away as possible from the O's, for there swam the fearsome swine whales. Alas and sadly, those dangers are long gone. Newport is now only semi-tropical. The flying pigs are no more eaten. Larry's whereabouts are unknown, and several bridges offer safe and reliable travel over the mud. When you are done gawking, carefully refold and tie the map. Rotate the book back to the proper reading aspect and turn the page. As our tale begins, the visitor is traveling on his own skiff, currently between the R and the I on the river, and will be coming ashore momentarily in preparation for his journey. The visitors engage the services of the monumental Manicules of Manchester. With 3 claps of his hands, the Manicules appear, showing the point of disembarkation and the ultimate destination. In a short time, the skiff docks, and as the visitor steps ashore, a heavy cloak slips from his shoulders. Any onlookers see only a tall figure wearing a meticulously tailored suit and a deep-brimmed hat. Under the hat, his hair is perfect. From the dock, the visitor walks west. On reaching Main Street, the visitor turns south. Not wanting to arrive too early, he spends some time wandering side streets and visiting a few old friends. Turning west on 5th Street, the visitor is delighted to see the Old Turtle, a very old friend. Over green tea in the garden, they trade news and old stories. Fragrance from the nearby wildflower fields freshen morning air. Reluctantly, the visitor says his goodbyes. The visitor makes his way to a street, formerly known as Bremen. In the old days, this was a street where musicians lived and worked. Music and laughter filled the air. The visitor stops in to see an old friend and jam session buddy, a cat named Berlon. He is welcomed at the front door with music, a glass of very nice Bordeaux, and a poker game. After an elaborate and very tasty afternoon tea with honey tart Queen Bee of 8th Street, The visitor makes his way back to Main Street. With a spring in his step, he is looking forward to his next stop. He has passed the shop many times and looked in the windows, but has never been inside. He felt a bit giddy with anticipation and 6 glasses of elderberry cordial. As he walks, he rubs his hands together and, without thinking, claps his hands. There was a thunderous crack, and a large and extremely bright light appeared above his head. "Oh, crap!" he exclaimed. He had inadvertently summoned a monumental manicule. As he had only arranged for 2, this was a rogue. With one more step planned in Covington, he had to get this fixed and pronto. Rogue manicules were a nuisance and prone to rude up-pointing, noses and skirts. The visitor was most definitely not looking forward to seeing the magistrate. "Come this way," he shouted to the rogue. The visitor opened a pair of blue doors, and they both disappeared. Poof, gone, right there at the corner of 8th and Main. Well, that was unexpected. Wonder what's behind those doors. The visitor is on his way to appear before Magistrate Metacarpus, known behind his hand as the miserable middle finger of manicules. There will be a slight delay in the story. In the meantime, there is no reason why you, the reader, can't find out the cause of the visitor's giddiness, aside from the very nice Bordeaux and 6 glasses of elderberry cordial. Turn the page. It's the wonderful workshop on Willard. Lift the cat bus. Look, a shop cat using the cone of silence. Next, follow the opening sequence on the flap. After your visit, close up gently. Lift the right side flap. It's the legendary blue tool chest of Megan. Lift the right top flap. The east-facing windows and workbenches. Lift the right bottom flap. Workbenches, clamps, books, stuff doorway. In the center are some of the thousands of students from far and wide that have taken a class in this workshop. They send their greetings and unending thanks. When confronted by an old door, open it. Gently nudge the cat to the left, find the tab, and pull gently to open the door. Look around, but don't steal anything. When you are ready, close the doors, secure with the cat, and turn the page. Cheese and crackers, that took much too long. The middle finger of manicules was particularly high-handed today, said the visitor as we turned through the blue doors. He looked around and realized it was now evening, very late evening. The joy of seeing old friends in the morning and afternoon fell away, and his steps grew heavier. The gathering gloom, he said in a low voice as he reached the corner of Willard and 9th. His mood darkened. Dense fog began to roll in and curl its way about the dark street. Colors had faded and seeped away. Blues were now gray and yellows now white. The visitor looked up at the peak of the roof and saw the Iron Cat. The locals named it the Glaring Cat, and they joked the owner of the shop had put it on the roof to glare at anyone foolish enough to buy flat pack furniture. The visitor shook his head and saw something else. He saw and felt sadness. The chair was done. He leaned back, stretched, and then noticed how dark the shop had become. It must be much later than he thought. Feeling a wave of fatigue, he sat down on the shop stool. After a few minutes, he got up and stood behind the chair and placed his hand on the crest rail. Looking down, he thought stick chairs with all their angles and mysteries were his favorite thing to make. His eyes followed the curves, and he thought this chair was as nearly perfect as any he'd made. Suddenly, the air in the shop felt charged. He let go of the crest rail as though it was white hot and stepped back. It looked as though the chair had smiled at him. "That's crazy," he exclaimed. I really am tired." He put his shop apron on the hook and turned to head upstairs. "It's a fine chair." The chairmaker was startled and turned to see a tall figure standing in the shadows near the door. "I saw the lights were on and wanted to watch you finish the chair. I did knock, but you were absorbed in your work." The chairmaker was alarmed. "How did you unlock the door?" The visitor stepped closer, and the chairmaker could see the visitor's face. His body sagged. and he realized he had made his last chair. Placing a hand on the chairmaker's shoulder, the visitor said, "My friend, it is time to leave." The chairmaker was shaken and confused. "Should I write a note? Do we just disapparate or something? Do I need a jacket? Should I bring anything with me?" he asked. "A note is not needed. No disapparating. You won't need a jacket. If you want to carry one small item, you may do so," answered the visitor. The chairmaker picked up the dividers he had used for so many years. The small weight in his hand felt reassuring. Together, the visitor and chairmaker moved toward the door. "We will take a walk through your town and then be on our way. I will explain as we walk," said the visitor. The chairmaker looked around the shop one last time. The few tools he had not yet stored in his tool chest, including his dividers, were still on the bench top. The chair, his last chair, seemed to glow in the darkness of the shop. As they passed through the shop door, the visitor said, "A very fine chair indeed." Up at the peak of the roof, the iron cat stretched. The heavy metal fell away, and two cats emerged. Freed from their grief, they made their way down to the sidewalk and hurried to catch up with the chairmaker. The end. Epilogue. They had walked a short distance when the chairmaker asked, "Are we going to revisit the different stages of my life? I really don't want to see myself as a teenager again." "No," laughed the visitor, "we are just going to the river." After a few more steps, the chairmaker said, "I'm relieved I was able to finish the chair." The visitor smiled and said, "I dawdled and delayed just so you could do so." "Can I look back one last time?" asked the chairmaker. The visitor stopped, looked the chairmaker directly in the eye and said, "I am most certain you should look back now." Turning, the chairmaker was overjoyed to see the two cats and called to them, "Wally, Bean, you're coming with me? I can't believe it, I've missed you so much." The two cats ran to greet him, and he knelt to pet them. "Bean, you got your leg back," he exclaimed. "Yes, I did," replied Bean. Stunned, the chairmaker lost his balance and lay sprawled on the sidewalk. "You can talk?" End note. In the 16th century, Michel de Montaigne wrote, "I want death to find me, planting my cabbages, but unconcerned with death, and much more with my unfinished garden." In mid-January 2016, Christopher Schwarz wrote of the nearly finished workshop on Willard Street. "I know it doesn't look like much, but this is the spot where I will die someday, tools in hand, God willing."